today, I think she, well, you know, if it was going to be a football analogy, it was definitely 1-0 to Liz. And she absolutely wiped the floor with Keir Starmer, frankly. And
what was that thought, actually? Because I'm just conscious people might not have seen anything out of PMQs. I've got a clip for you, a couple of clips. Let's just play that so we know what we're talking about in case you missed it.
Can't she see there's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain?
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises. It is quite extraordinary, isn't it, that there doesn't seem to be the ability in the Labour Party to find a female leader, or indeed a leader who doesn't come from North London. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the issue is.
Oh, ouch, that'll learn him. Jacqueline, yeah, as you were saying, she was very strong.
Well, this continued for the entire time. And, OK, you know, she's been at the dispatch box in different capacities for a number of years. But it is very different when it's PMQs and you're the Prime Minister. And I thought she was absolutely excellent. And, of course, politicians all have their own style. But she's sort of got this sort of... I could see, or I felt anyway, she's sort of very funny, but she's not overtly funny. She comes out with these quips in this really sort of subtle way. I mean, the answer, the response, when Theresa May had asked her, we were talking about three Conservative female Prime Ministers, and then obviously she followed on from that about the Labour leadership, and they all came from North London. So she came out with actually some very, very good responses, I think.
Martin?
Yeah, I'd agree. She was well prepped and she got to her script well, and Theresa May set her up nicely and she just had to nudge it into the back of the net, didn't she? Yeah. I think she's got the mother of all in trays as a Prime Minister, hasn't she? She's probably got one of the toughest in trays of a Prime Minister for certainly, well, probably my lifetime, actually. I think there's a certain relief all round that she's probably going to take things like PMQs a little bit more seriously than the previous incumbent. You know, at times it felt like he was doing, you know, a cross between half an hour's stand-up at his local Rotary Club and back being president of the Oxford Union, you know. And there was a sense that there was actually, like your correspondent said, a debate between the two of them. Possibly Liz Truss has the ability to make Keir Starmer look even more wooden than she can come over as sometimes. And I think it'll be a challenge to him to step up and be slightly more personable. Perhaps his slightly, you know, rather straight, lawyerly delivery was quite a nice contrast for some people with Boris. But I think up against Liz Truss, he's going to have to work to come over as a little bit more human. So it's been very interesting to see how it unfolds. But
I also think, in addition, I think the policies that we'll start to see come forward now, which I would like to see, of course, are very much going to be you'll see more of a contrast, I think, with real Tory policies. Which is what the voters vote for, certainly the ones that vote for us in any event. And I also think that she won't be sort of, once she sets her mind on what the position is going to be, along with the Secretaries of State, because they're going to have huge responsibility to deliver now when they're talking about delivering. And she is very determined. She's always done what she's set out to do. And, I mean, even if you speak to other ministers, former chancellors, etc., that she's worked in the same department for, what they have said without a shadow of a doubt, that she was set a task and she did it. And I think that this will follow through and stand her in very good stead, actually, now as Prime Minister in these very challenging times.
Martin,
well, let's see.
What do you reckon to what we've seen with the appointments in the Cabinet then?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because certainly the initial appointments, you know, there's this phrase, government of all the talents. You know, the initial appointments look like government of all the mates, you know, friends and neighbours, you know, Kwasi Kwarteng living down the road from her, Therese Coffey, very, very old ally. And there was that interesting contrast because everyone pointed to the diversity element, you know, the contrast. Did you see there was that photograph of the last Thatcher cabinet from the end of the 80s? And it was one woman and 29, what's the acronym? Algies, old white guys in suits, you know. And the contrast could not be greater.
I've never heard that.
Algies. It's
Algae.
a nice one. But at first, it did seem as though, certainly at the top, The danger was a different kind of lack of diversity, and that's a lack of diversity in outlook. And while you can understand a Prime Minister wanting to appoint people a lot like her, you don't want to have a cabinet of nodding dogs. And you want to have people who are going to be able to share slightly different perspectives, particularly when things get tough.